Probably seen this chart. In fact, you may have already seen this chart today in this room. I didn't see it earlier, but it comes up pretty often. But the exciting thing for us about this is if you, as you look at 5G services, and there's a whole host of different 5G services, and you look at them based on the bandwidth required and the latency requirements, there's a number of these that don't really require full 5G. They don't require the full 5G air interface. They don't require the full 5G system necessarily. And so we can start to address those. And so those are things that we can pick off, if you will, over time as the capabilities in the network mature and build towards it. So we're working with customers on a lot of this stuff, whether it's the remote monitoring, obviously the video calling, enhanced collaboration services, first responder. There's a bunch of things in there. And then when we start getting out there on the edge, autonomous driving, true, full augmented, rich augmented reality, where you really, for your brain to process the signal accurately, it needs to be under about 3 milliseconds, I think, total. So some of those things are a bit further out there, but there's a lot of things that we can do today. So when we talk about 5G, for Cisco, 5G is really end-to-end. In fact, we were just talking about this on a break as well. It's 5G for all of our customers. So it's 5G for our operator customers, 5G in the enterprise, 5G in the SMB, 5G in government and public sector and all that. So we bring it across. So as we talk to enterprise customers, there are a couple trends that emerge. One is, as most everybody is, they're trying to drive OpEx down, drive complexity down, and increase their agility. We've seen this manifested already to date with the move to cloud computing, with the move to SD-WAN architectures, to optimize and provide flexibility in their connectivity, the way they're optimizing branches and things. They see this extending to 5G, and they're looking for additional capabilities there. Enterprise without boundaries. You can imagine what this is, and some of you have probably heard this before and worked with it. But extending those capabilities outside of the enterprise, so it doesn't matter whether I'm in the enterprise or out, I still have the same level of capabilities. So obviously that requires things like potentially high bandwidth, low latency, all the application characteristics. But it also gets us into the scope of things like identity. And we'll talk about this on the next slide, but there's a real opportunity in here as we look at identity, I think, to do some interesting things to provide richer services for these enterprises. And then of course, new applications and devices. Had some great talks today about IoT and about some of the different variants of IoT and different capabilities. And enterprises are all over this stuff, and I know you guys all talk to them as well, and there may be some enterprise. Are there any enterprise customers in here, by the way? Okay, all right. So yeah, a lot there. So just a quick one on the SP and enterprise point of view on identity. From an operator perspective, the operator looks out and says, okay, I have my network, I have my services, and I have a bunch of enterprises out here that are connecting. And a lot of that relationship and a lot of the identity comes down to a SIM, essentially. And you have all these different SIMs. But what the enterprise says is, look, I've got all these users in my enterprise that have an identity, they have specific policies, they have specific capabilities inside the enterprise, and a lot of times they're bringing their own device, so they're going across multiple different service providers. And so the enterprises are looking for ways to map those characteristics as they step outside the enterprise, whether it's when they're in the public network, or maybe when they're visiting and they're a guest in another private network, or when their customers come in and they go from the macro network into their Wi-Fi network. And so there are a lot of things here that that customers, enterprise customers, and not just enterprises, but the whole variety of end customers are really looking at. And there's an opportunity here that we're sort of teasing out and working on around linking identity policy and control and figuring out some way to make a more intelligent service out of that.